Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are moving back to the NBA because it's time to talk about my guy, Benny Boy Ben 10. That's what I call him. Benny Boy Ben 10. We got to talk about this fella as he went on J.J Reddick's podcast and quoted saying, I didn't handle things the right way. Sixers didn't either. So basically reflecting on the events that transpired towards the end of his tenure with the 76ers. Now, the question that we are presenting here, as I scroll down to see the exact question that's on the monitor, should Ben Simmons, should he shoulder the blame for the way his tenure with the 76ers ended? And as a fellow would like to do, sub me in, coach. I'm going to sub myself in here. You know, I was the only one when talking about this whole Ben Simmons situation on the 76ers. I was the only one that I knew of. Maybe you know somebody else, that shared the same train of thought as me. But nevertheless, I was the only one that I know of that really defended Ben Simmons in any type of format. A lot of people, they looked at that last season, the wide open dunk. That's the famous clip when talk about Ben Simmons that he passed up, wide open and scoring 0 points in the fourth quarter against the Hawks, right? I was the only one that in any format defended the cat because, I looked at it from this perspective. And I like the fact that Ben Simmons took ownership of his wrongs because, Claire, he has to take some of the ownership of the 76ers trusting the process, not getting to that promised land, right? Not fulfilling that promise. We have to give him some blame for that. Of course, the lack of shooting and not evolving as an all-around NBA player, of course, you're going to take some of that heat. But also, when you look at everything and, taking ownership because knowing that you did wrong, just like how this is a team-relying sport and it takes all parties for a team to be successful, such as the relationship. It takes all parties to maintain a healthy relationship. And I feel like the 76ers didn't do a good job of that. Throwing Ben Simmons flat out under the bus. Your coach, who's supposed to be your coach, saying, I don't know if I could win a playoff game or a championship with you as the lead dog at the point guard position. Embiid calling you out in the presser. Like, Zay, if we did a show, myself, you, Dino, Zach, coach, and somebody had a bad day on the air. It just wasn't their day, right? For whatever reason, they just had a bad show. You're not going to hear me come on the next show and come out and call that person out and say, well, so-and-so had a bad show. You're not going to hear that. That's something that if I'm going to say something's going to be done eternally, we're going to talk about it and be like, yo, you was off, my brother. But it's not going to be something I'm going to go on the show and say, oh, well, he had a bad day, da-da-da. Nah, that's not how we roll. And as long as I've been watching sports, that's not how teammates roll. They don't throw the cat under the bus, even if they really feel that Ben Simmons was the main culprit on why they got bounced the way they did against the Hawks and why this has ended in a complete failure and the destruction of the team and the core. Nah, I don't think they did a good job of doing that. And another thing I took away from that podcast in general is something that I realized. I've been realizing, but the podcast kind of highlighted it a little bit for me, is that we don't respect and give credit to Ben Simmons for all the little nuances that he does on the floor, like guarding the best guy offensively in an era where there's a lot of skill, whereas back then there wasn't as much skill as it is right now. And he's guarding that guy on a night-to-night basis, all that energy defensively, and also setting the table for his guys to eat. Dishing the rock and J.J. Reddick having a high three-point percentage, the highest of his career because of Ben Simmons. We don't appreciate the little nuances because it's not fancy. We want to see him shoot. We want to see him knock down threes. We want to see him be Steph Curry. But he's not Steph Curry, and he will never be Steph Curry. So I think we need to do a better job of appreciating him, and I think his current situation is the best situation he could have asked for outside of everything from a, outside perspective that's going on with the Nets and Kevin Durant and ownership. Everybody on this team, I believe like 5 guys. I think I saw a stat where it was like 5 guys on this team has above 3-point percentage that's over like 34%, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that, 34, 33, something like that. So they got shooters around him. They got everything that they need to kind of put him in a position to succeed. Whereas I don't think the 76ers did so. They tried at various times, but the way how it ended, nah.
I think after listening to Ben Simmons speak for the first time publicly, in a very long time, I believe since he took those interview questions and that practice that he did last year before the season started, I think the Sixers should shoulder the blame. I think after hearing what transpired, he told Doc Rivers he's not going to be able to practice. He's not ready yet, and he still threw him into practice anyway. And then on top of that, being the first to do the drill, as if showing like I'm gonna show you kind of thing, or trying to show his power. It's unfortunate that he had to go through that and really face that in his workplace as an employee at a job. It's not even talking about, oh, he's a basketball player. Like, no, he's an employee for a company, and they try to show him out in front of everybody, all the other employees, essentially. That's not cool. It's unfortunate that as a fan, as a basketball fan, I looked at it as a basketball fan. Oh, why is he on the court? I want to see the best product on the court. You say he's the best point guard, or you say he's a top 5 point guard. I want to see it on the court, opposed to me just thinking like maybe this guy's having a really rough go at it. Maybe he's not mentally prepared to perform his work duties, and he shouldn't be forced to do so if he already told it and explained he's not ready to do so. He doesn't want to keep facing fines, but at the end of the day, he's not ready to also play basketball. And I think that's something that they were not trying to hear with, have him making the $30 million a year, I believe, with that contract they had at Philly. And also were heavily invested in him because they traded away Jimmy Butler to contain Tobias Harris. I think Tobias Harris was more catered to a Ben Simmons play role because he's a spot-up shooter. He can shoot from the 3, and Jimmy Butler's more of a guy who needs to drive into the paint and do other things to score the basketball. So I think, in my opinion, that was something that was seen throughout the duration of his time there, and they didn't want to see, hear anything about Ben Simmons saying he's unable to play because they felt like he was the investment that they put into, and they wanted to see reap the benefits of the investment immediately, not just wait until he's ready to play basketball. So I think when he spoke in an interview, it was a very profound podcast. I think you should all check it out when you get the chance. It's something that it gives me into a brighter light. Like, damn, Ben Simmons probably really did go through it with the Philadelphia 76ers. And then on top of that, going through it with the Brooklyn Nets when he was unable to play for those last couple games, or even in the playoffs when they felt like they needed him the most.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about this whole situation, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. Mental health, right? I think the 76ers, they didn't do a good job of supporting that aspect of everything, the mental health aspect of things. Look, we all go through our situations, and we all got bills to pay. At the same time, we all got goals. So I can understand where there's a conflict of interest, where you have players that are trying to win games and trying to compete for the end goal, which is to win a championship. But sometimes there's other factors that go into everybody's individual lives, which is mental health and things of that nature. Me, I always been a person that, despite everything I'm going through mentally, because Claire, it hasn't always been the best ride mentally every single day for me for the last couple of years, but I attack my situation different. I'm like, listen, I got a goal, which is to get this show where I want it to be in the future. So I'm going to thug it out, and I'm going to make sure that I'm managing my me time, but at the same time, consistently putting out so I can get the results that I want to get. Some people, they need that time. They need to get away and kind of reflect and get their mind right? You hear John Wall talking about his mental health. A lot of stuff happened through that brother's career. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be on the court and off the court. So I think mental health, that's a real thing. And, sometimes we think that a lot of players, when they get money, that's something that doesn't affect them. They're obligated and vaccinated against their mental health. But, that's an individual thing. A lot of things happen. We don't know what goes on in these players' lives. So for a lot of people to say, oh, that was a cop-out because you don't want to play, I thought that was disrespectful. And even if I, at one point, thought and believed that same way, I had to check myself, because at the end of the day, it is what it is. If the guy needs mental health and needs to focus on that, he needs to focus on that. And another thing that whole situation with Doc Rivers reminded me of was that Antonio Brown situation with Bruce Arians, where, basically, if you believe Antonio Brown's version, right, because we still don't know what happened on that sideline. It was he said, she said. We still don't know, which is shocking because nobody, I guess the Buccaneers are adopting that street code. I ain't snitching for nothing. Okay, cool. Because somebody saw something. But if you believe Antonio Brown's side of the situation where he texted Bruce Arians before the game. I don't believe I can play in this game, coach. And Bruce Arians, in the middle of a game is thinking about the game. You'll get in here. Oh, you don't want to get in here? Get out. If you believe that story, it reminds me of Ben Simmons' situation where he goes to the coach before practice and says, look, I don't think I can mentally take on practice right now. And the coach is thinking about, what he's thinking about, which is winning. And then you get the situation that you got. It is what it is. I think these players, and I think the 76ers, to end my take, basically failed Ben Simmons, failed to give him that support, that backbone that is needed for him to gain confidence. He cannot gain any confidence by you throwing him under the bus.
I think, you're 100% correct. And I have to send out a public apology because I definitely was one of the people that was like, well, what you mean you're not mentally ready to play? Like, what you don't shoot, you don't do nothing else besides dunk the ball and pass. What do you mean you're not ready to play? And I'd have to check myself as well. Well, check myself first because it's like who am I to judge what a man cannot do when he's not mentally in it? If you don't feel ready to do it mentally, you're not gonna do anything. You're not gonna wake up and brush your damn teeth if you don't feel like doing it. That's just how it is. You mentally, you gotta be, mentally, it's your brain is so strong and so powerful that if whatever thoughts or whatever is rummaging through your mind through these days, it kind of derails you. It just puts you in a heavy mood where you feel sluggish. You don't want to do anything. So I had to check myself for that because that wasn't, who am I to judge anybody because I said I want to see him play basketball. That doesn't make any sense. So I shouldn't even be questioning a guy's mental health when everyone has their own struggles that they deal with that no one really knows about. But it's unfortunate that the Sixers had to go did this. Not only from the coaching staff, but it was also encouraged by the front office when they were fined over every little thing that he did not do or was failing to show up for. When they already discussed that he was no longer mentally able to perform duties.
And to end off here, I would say that Ben Simmons is fine with the player that he is right now, helping his teammates. He's fine being that supporting player rather than that star, that number one, that number two. And you got to respect him for it. He knows what he is. He knows what his strengths and weaknesses are. He's been playing the game, high school, college, right? Even though it was 1 year in college that he didn't show up to class for. But he knows what he is. So he's fine with being that. He's not, we trying to get him to be LeBron James. He's not. No, those are our expectations. That's why we let down, because those are the expectations we had for him. But his expectations is looking a lot different. And what he wants to do is be the ultimate teammate. Joe Tsai bringing in Markieff Morris, the Morris brother, I thought that was a good thing for trying to build the culture. I thought that was a strategic, obvious move that I think, you can't go wrong there. Of course, the coaching is going to be the heartache of this team, the how you call it, the back end of this team, the weakness of this team going forward. Steve Nash is not that guy. But if the core of this group can kind of get together and show some form of leadership, rather just be trying to play games and trying to be healthy, if they can coach themselves, they already got the skills. And I think they complement each other well. If they can just show up and coach themselves and take ownership and stop all this pointing fingers and, not showing up, they can do all that. And Ben Simmons start making threes out here. Then the Nets is taking a chip, bro. And Ben Simmons, because he said he want to, shoot threes, If he starts shooting threes, Nets winning the chip. Bank it.